Lastly, all of this intellectual changes, economic changes, material technological changes, what did it do? It changed the very fabric of society. It changed the very nature of society. I need you to visualize with me how all of these changes, one side technology, factory, cities, chimneys, pollution, gutter, worker unions. Okay, all of this is happening. Another side, the ideas of democracy, of equal representation, of voting, of overthrowing monarchy, of rights, natural rights, right to life, right to liberty, right to property, separation of powers. All of these ideas, over 100 years, everything, which is why they are using the word revolution, because it's a total change. Okay, all these ideas are then creating new social structure from an old feudal, rural, and rural and monarchical, politically monarchical, economically feudal, and geographically rural kind of a system. You are now moving into a new system. And the features of this new system, the new social changes, which are social and political, as a consequence of all these intellectual and material and economic changes that we discussed till now, the social changes are: first, division of labor. Even earlier, there was some form of division of labor, but not as steep as you have now. Okay, I told you earlier also how now you have a real, lot of institutions have come up. And as a consequence of all these institutions, you have broken the state into judiciary, legislature, executive. In executive, you said this branch, this branch, this branch. You created a constitution. The constitution will created so many acts, so many laws, and all of this created very specialized roles in the state. The economy moved away from a simple subsistence economy to a more trading based commercial free market economy. And as it does that, people become specialists, and people become specialists in what area they work, which is, do they trade, or do they manufacture, or are they in banking, or are they in finance? There is that specialization. Then in that, are they a lower level worker, are they an engineer, are they a supervisor, or are they part of the higher management? There is there is horizontal specialization and there is vertical specialization. All of this is creating complex division of labor. Okay, so all these economic, technological, intellectual changes is leading into a social change of division of labor. And first division of labor is economic, both horizontal and vertical. Of course, there is also gender division of labor, because till now, as households, they were working together in their own small household based enterprise. From there, they move into these large factories, which means, who takes care of the children then? So the woman has to stay back to take care of the child at home in a city, while the man goes to the factory and works. So clear gender division of labor. This changed. Some textbooks say, and this is wrong, some textbooks say that as part of industrial revolution, actually women joined the labor force. It is not. As part of industrial revolution, actually women moved out of the labor force. Until then, they were actually part of the production process, because in a household, if you there is a beautiful movie called Mallesam, and in that movie, it clearly depicts how one family in and that is the currently the state also. I have had the privilege of visiting some of these villages and places, both in Kakinada and in Anandpur, and I have seen how the entire family works: the father, the mother, and the son. And in that movie, the mother begins to get both the father and the mother actually begin to get severe arm pain. But you will clearly notice, although, and that tradition is hundreds of years old tradition in India. That village didn't come about in the last 50 years or something. That lineage of that family and those traditions go really, really back hundreds of years old, which means this household based production, whether it is weaving or barber or carpenter or baker, they do that. The woman and the man both participate in the production process in the labor market. But once you have factories, that is not the case. the woman stays. There is a separation of production and reproduction. Reproduction is handled by the woman, where reproduction not just means giving birth to babies, but also raising them, taking care of them, nurturing them. All of those roles are split, and those are now only exclusively done by the woman. And man goes into economic production. He goes to the factory, he works, he produces new things and all of that, and he gets paid in wages. Okay, for the first time. Now that separation happens, and this leads to a gender. When this separation again joins is in the end of 20th century, towards towards the end of 19th century, towards 1880, 1890, Europe is festering with war, with a lot of war. And America did see women join the labor force also during wars. So what happens is, so many wars used to happen that men used to go for wars. And that time the factories were idle. And in order to run those idle factories, because men were not available, women were asked to come. And this happened maximum during the World Wars. During the World Wars was when really women joined the factory. Otherwise, some textbooks inaccurately say that gender happened during the Industrial Revolution. The first part, it didn't. It happened much later. Yeah. So that is about division of labor. The society clearly started dividing according to their labor roles. Now, as a consequence of that, new identities started coming. Identities that till now did not exist. And that is the rise of classes and class consciousness and class identity. Okay. Until now, people thought of themselves as whether you are clergy or the royalty, or you are a serf, you're a peasant, you're a commoner. Now, in the cities, when all of this is happening and the factories are happening and industrial revolution is happening and all of that, and also the political revolution, because in the political revolution also, the common people saw themselves as different from the people who are enjoying the power till now. At the same time, that is happening in the political line, and in the economic line, all the workers are coming together and they are being exploited by the capitalists. Okay, the capitalist is somebody who is bringing capital. He is bringing, because he was an earlier landlord, he could sell the land, bring that money, invest, buy new land, build a factory, because building a factory required huge amounts of capital, took loan from the bank, he is credit worthy, he took loan. So these are capitalists. And their interest is to extract as much from the laborer as possible and pay as little wages to him. Obviously, he wants to make profit. And the laborers got together that we need to protect our interest and we need to ask for more. So they started making them work. So child labor was acceptable. So children as young as 10 and 11 began to work in these factories. Usually workers' children were forced to come to the factories. Similarly, work days used to be all 7 days they used to work, 6 days they used to work, usually 7th day also they used to work. And they used to have 15-hour work day. So they used to work for 15 hours. They never had watches. This small clock, they used to have this round clock, Gandhi clock, we call them, they're small. Only the supervisor used to have it. And that was also a kind of power that the supervisor had. He could tell how long you were working. And these people didn't know how to read. At least the initial batches, they didn't know how to read, and they didn't have clocks. They were not allowed to wear clocks, wear watches, wrist watches. Anyway, so what is happening is, so these people then feel that exploitation. They feel ki, no, we came in. There are records that say that the workers used to feel that the watch used to be, the big clock, the factory clock used to be turned by the supervisor slowly, making it delayed. So they used to ensure that they came early, and because these people didn't have clocks in their own houses, they wouldn't know. So what I'm saying is, for various reasons, these workers came together, and the worker identity, as a consequence, the worker unions came. But first and foremost, working class. As a class, we are a working class. Bolke ek identity, one identity emerged. The working class identity. In contrast, obviously, the capitalist class identity is also there, you know. And I told you a couple of classes earlier, the capitalist class are called bourgeoisie, the working class are called the proletariat. These are the German words, but German and French words. But the point is, actually, bourgeoisie is a French word. These people developed class identities and class consciousness. Do you see the social change that is happening from what they imagined they were part of the society earlier as a baker or as something else and as a serf, as a commoner? Now their class identity, who they think they are, that has changed, and they have turned into um, the haves and the have-nots, the capitalists and the working class. That class identity has come, rise of classes, those with property and without property. Then you have free market, what I just told you earlier, that finally this led to a demand that the state should not interfere in trading. In fact, in market, in businesses, it shouldn't interfere. Today, in fact, if you look at how the Indian our society is going, it is very close to this. Recently, there were farm laws, and one of the things that the farm laws espoused was that why should government regulate where a farmer can sell his produce? Okay, why should the government let the market free? Let them make contracts with corporates. Let them go and decide whom to sell their produce to. There are both sides to this coin. It's a complex debate. I don't want to get into the details of it. For now, it is enough for you to know that as a society, we are debating exactly these questions, of free market. So when this government, and let me tell you that even in Congress government, the same thing was happening. Just that because this is a right wing government, it gets a lot more lashes, and everything it does is highlighted. But honestly, Congress was as much committed to privatization. Privatization is the government has control and many times even owns. Remember, I told you there is a separation between control or management and ownership. There is a separation there. In modern system, the companies can be owned by somebody but controlled by somebody else. Now, public sector units are huge factories, because in the initial time, when India became free, the Indian capitalists were too exploited and too small, and they couldn't compete with the global players. So the state invested heavily and made these what are called backbone factories, or these are core industries, we call them, like steel, iron, cement. These could not, chemical industries, BHEL, your heavy electricals, heavy plates and vessels. Mm, these industries require huge capital, and individual entrepreneurs of India at that time were not ready to invest that kind of a capital. So the state came and invested in huge PSUs. Today, the question that is being asked, and this has been being asked since the liberalization privatization of 1990s, the turn that Indian, and that was during Congress, and today we have BJP. Irrespective of it, what is happening is we are asking, why is government in the business of business? Why is government making, earlier, if I don't know whether you know this, the government used to make watches, HMT watch, or it used to make the Bajaj, the not Bajaj, it used to make scooters. Um, so the question is, why is government making all of this? And in each of this, you will notice that when you liberalize it, like Indian Airlines was liberalized, actually not India, the airline industry was liberalized, and private players were allowed, which is free market basically. Like, let them come and let them play, let the market free. Why is the government controlling only Indian Airlines to fly? And all of us have reaped the benefits of that privatization. Similarly with vehicles, I mean, there is a two-wheeler. India is one of the largest consumer of two-wheelers in the world, and all of this increases. I mean, having that two-wheeler for a lot of people is more convenient than traveling in a bus. Traveling in a bus is problematic in many ways, and especially for a lot of young girls who are going to college, being able to go on a two-wheeler um, is a better experience than traveling by public transport. Of course, some will argue that public transport is a safer mode of transport. Anyway, we don't want to go into that debate. What I'm saying is, in all of this, the debate that is happening today, the discussion that is happening today is let the market free. And the same discussion was happening then, and that brought about a lot of social changes. Another set of changes that came was or due to French Revolution. And in French Revolution, I told you that how there was first estate by the clergy, there was second estate by the nobles, and the third estate by general people. But the general people had much lesser vote. On the group, I'm going to share a nice small history video of you on YouTube. It's a beautiful video. It quickly encompasses the entire French Revolution history. It's animated. It's nice. So this is another thing about the classes. I'm going to constantly share material which I feel is high quality and short and simple, just to enhance your uh, because visualization helps. It helps you understand and appreciate some of these concepts better. So I will keep sharing whether it's a text, whether it's a material, or whether it is a video like this. I will keep sharing that. So after the class, I will share. You can go through it. It quickly summarizes the history of French Revolution. What happened? Um, so what happens is that, like I said, the commoners grow more and more agitated. They feel that why should the 2% of the population have more vote than the 98%? If we are the ones who made this contract and not God, then we want to change this contract. Okay, there is something called tennis court oath. You can, again, this is all part of your world history, but this is important for our sociology as well. On the tennis court, these people come, the third estate people, the common people, they come, uh, the representatives of the common people, not the common people, and they take an oath, that they will create a constitution and a constitutional government. And in doing that, they then go on and they create a constituent assembly and they start making the constitution. In the meanwhile, the king gets beheaded along with the queen. That is an unknown um event in human history. I think it really, and European society is a very close knit society. I mean, all the other, so they used to intermarry. So you have, in fact, the French queen who was killed was from Austria. So they used to intermarry between the Austrian princes to the French, the French to the German to the Dutch. So they all used to intermarry. So immediately all the kings became aware. What if similar things happen in our society? They started taking measures to that effect. But the people in those kingdoms also heard of this, and things started festering up, and things started developing. And based on the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the concept of citizenship came, where every member is equal and everyone has equal vote, and we all are equal citizens of the state. We all come together and we make a new contract, we make a new constitution that is in our interest. And how does all of us come together and do it? They set up a system, and that system is democracy, where through elections, through voting, every member can vote and elect a representative. That representative represents my will. So for this 10,000 people, instead of 10,000 people talking, they will elect one person who will talk on their behalf. He will represent their interest and their will in the parliament. So that is how democracy came. That is how the idea of citizenship came. They realized that politically we are all equal, that one person is not more powerful than another. The only thing powerful is the constitution. And once this feeling developed, and for all these ideas to circulate, you needed pamphlets, you needed papers, you needed also stories. Stories were written. If you remember, even in Indian political movement, nationalist movement, a lot of literature was written, whether it was by Rabindranath Tagore, whether it was by other writers. So these ideas travel through writing, and for writing, by now printing press has come, which means language begins to standardize. Once language begins to standardize, because printing requires language to be standardized, you can't speak in many small dialects. You have to fix one dialect. In Telugu, it is called Grandhika Telugu, or today we have one standardized Telugu. Usually consider the Inadu paper to be the standard Telugu. That is usually how it is. um, so same thing happened there also. These things got standardized. French got standardized, German got standardized, Dutch got standardized, because materials, literature started producing, they started developing literature and circulating it to circulate these ideas. It was directly political pamphlets or through literature, through stories. But whatever it was, ideas started circulating, and the feeling that we all speak one language, we are one ethnicity, we should make our own constitution now so that we can govern ourselves. This feeling developed and they started acting on it, and this is how nation state as a concept was born, and nation states became reality. Today, the only accepted form that largely exists in the world are nation states. A nation is a group of people sharing similar culture, history, values, and usually ethnicities. Not always the case. For instance, India is a multi ethnic society. Not so with European societies. Most of the countries across the world are majority one ethnicity. Okay, we are an exception that way. We are a multi ethnic society. But as far as the shared culture and history is concerned, you know that that is the case. We do share a history and culture together. I mean, there is a certain amount of sharing of history and culture between even North India, northernmost parts of India, like the Delhi and all, and say Hyderabad or Bangalore. There were times all the way back to Ashoka, which is 3rd century BC. Even during Ashoka, the reign was all the way from Pakistan to Bengal to south, all the way almost up to Bangalore. All of this was one empire, the Ashokan, the Mauryan Empire. So there is a shared history, there is a shared culture. We do understand there is a shared, which is why we are a nation. But in other cases, it's much, much more simpler. And that is the idea of a nation. A nation is imagined. If we all believe that we are a nation, that is a nation, which is why nations are imagined. They are in the head. They are not real thing. If we all imagine we are a nation and we draw a boundary and we say this is a nation, it is a nation. So this is the story of the social changes that came about due to the intellectual and economic changes that happened in modern Europe. I hope I have made a summary of everything. And yeah, so that is the story of changes in modern Europe. Now, yeah. Now let us see how sociology has developed to study these changes. I will just initiate this topic and I will leave it for the next class, but I will want you to focus now. If these are the social changes that are happening, your first 3-4 major thinkers, your first thinker is Auguste Comte. Auguste Comte said that he put all the academic disciplines on a spectrum. He said there is mathematics, there is, which is according to him, it is least complex because it is very, very straightforward. It is axioms, and whatever axioms and rules, mathematical rules are there, they determine. So it is straightforward. Then you have physics, which deals with real material, as opposed to maths, which is abstract and therefore a little complex. Then you have chemistry, which is slightly more complex. By biology, it is really complex because biology is real life, and life has different ways of manifesting itself, and therefore it is complex. And then he goes on to say that there is economics, political science, and finally sociology. He says sociology attempts to study entire society with all its complexity. It sees the economic, the political, the religion, the social, the gender. It looks at everything, and therefore it is the most complex of disciplines. That's one thing that he says. But more importantly, he imagines sociology to be like social physics, which means he believes, again, the idea of enlightenment, that society also can be understood the way physics understands the physical universe. Sociology, or social physics as he called it, will understand the social world, the society. And just like here laws were deducted and they were used to improve, he believed by observing the social world, we can make laws that will improve social life. Because by now, remember the conditions already. There is a lot of conflict. There is poverty because urbanization. There is squalor. There is uh, cities used to be very very poor conditions those days, and people were crying just like people before that. People used to die of disease. Somehow medicine has improved that, but now people are dying out of poverty, and they believe that just like medicine and machines have reduced physical labor and medicines have improved physical health, just like in the physical realm that is happening, they believed we can address poverty, we can address social conflict through social laws. And Auguste Comte believed that. He's the first thinker. Then you have Emily Durkheim, who is the second big sociologist. He proposed something called the division of labor. He said he so his answer to why is the society so different today from what it used to be, he's looking at the modern European society, and he's trying to ask, or he's trying to answer, why is this society different from the earlier society? And his answer is division of labor. He says the earlier society is like a very mechanistic society. Mane, everybody in that society did the same thing. So this, what they shared with each other is a similarity. Okay, so all were agricultural farmers. So everybody woke up at the same time. Everybody went to the farm at the same time. Everybody tilled the land. Everybody came back. Everybody took break at the same time. Everybody came back. So it is similarity that defined, and it is because we are all doing the same thing. We want to be together, and that is what defined us, that we are all similar, and if anybody tried to be different, they would be penalized, they will be called a deviant, and they will be forced to conform to the social norms, because the society is held together by similarity, because we are all together, we are doing the same thing. As opposed to that, he argues that in an industrial society, in a modern society, everybody is a different person. The doctor, the engineer, the lawyer, the worker, the capitalist. We are all different, and we are all coming together with differences, and we are contributing to each other by bringing our own specialization, our own services to the free market and exchanging there. He calls this kind of a setup, the modern setup, as an organic setup. Earlier, he called it machine because it is very mechanistic, it is very rule bound. Everybody has to follow the rules. Here, the individual can do is more free. Remember, I told you about Locke, and Locke said every individual is free. He is born free. He has a right to life, liberty, and property. Now, continuing from there, Durkheim argues that every individual is free in a modern society, and they come together through a complex division of labor. This is not a simple division of labor like in case of traditional societies. In modern society, the society is held together by a complex division of labor. This is Durkheim's explanation of the changes that he saw brought about by modernity, which is the first point, division of labor. The biggest sociological thinker is Karl Marx. We will be giving a significant portion and time of our classes to Karl Marx. Karl Marx also is trying to understand what are the changes that brought about by modernity. And Karl Marx, instead of focusing on how different people are cooperating to make the society work through division of labor, unlike Durkheim, Marx sees conflict. He sees how this new system is creating poverty, is creating differences, is creating two classes that are conflicting against each other. And he takes the side of the class of have nots, of the proletariat, of the working class, in order to ameliorate, in order to make their lives better. Remember the promise of reason? We are always trying to make lives better, and we can make lives better. So Marx calls, he thinks, and he does use a very, there's also a faith in scientism, and he says history progresses, and from the earliest like hunter gatherer to pastoral to agricultural, to feudal, to capitalism. He says that is how societies evolve. He says that is how all societies evolve. And in each stage, there are two classes that will conflict. And he says finally in capitalism, there are two classes that will conflict, the haves and the have nots, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. And then he gives a lot of theories that explain what is happening in this case because of the classes. But all of this rests on the fundamental premise that capitalism creates two separate, conflicting, opposing classes. Third, you have Weber, Max Weber. He says that he defines modernity as a new social system which is based on bureaucracy. Okay, everything in in the modern system is based on bureaucracy. So whether it is in the market, different institutions. Remember, I told you instead of those earlier time, now factories are set up. Earlier time, what you knew whom to go and ask what. Say I didn't know how to make this sword. I will go and ask my friend, or I will go and ask my senior. There is a senior apprentice. I'll go and ask him, and I know him personally. He knows me personally. But in a factory, some village, the supervisor will come from somewhere else. In a typical workplace, we don't know each other. We are all colleagues, and we still manage to work each other because there are bureaucratic structures that govern all interaction, all social interaction in the modern system is mediated through organizational rules. Every organization will have a rule and will have rules and ways of interacting, acceptable norms, acceptable ways of interacting. And it is through that bureaucratic procedure and bureaucratic process that modernity, that is the difference between modernity and earlier system. In earlier system, people interacted because they knew each other by face, they knew each other in person. In modernity, people interact without knowing each other in person. I gave you the examples in the initial class. I told you, when you go to a typical government office, when you go to a bank, when you go to a hospital, when you go to a school, you know whom to approach. You know you have to go to the reception. The receptionist will say, go see the headmistress. You know where the headmistress room is. You'll go, you'll meet. You don't have to know the headmistress in person to join your child into a school. You don't need to know the bank manager in person, or he doesn't like your face, therefore he can't reject the loan. There are rules. This is all mediated. The entire social life is mediated through organizations that are run by bureaucracies and bureaucratic setup. Now, these are the social changes that came about in. This is how all classical sociological thinkers, modern sociology, the Parsons, Merton, and Mead, the other three thinkers have nothing to do with all of this. This entire, but sociology was born by Auguste Comte and Emily Durkheim, Max Weber, Karl Marx, Herbert Spencer. Herbert Spencer says that just like life evolved, just like Darwin says life evolved, Herbert Spencer proposes theory of social evolution. He says societies also evolve over time. And he gives the same stages that I just gave, Marx gave, which is earliest societies were hunter-gatherer, they became pastoralist, then they became agriculture, tribal, then they became feudal, then they become capitalist. So the theory of social evolution by Herbert Spencer, how is he doing that? He is doing that because he's influenced by, remember the intellectual changes? He's influenced by Darwin, he's influenced by, and he's proposing a theory. And so this is how you will notice that sociology emerged trying to understand and respond to the changes that were happening because of modernity in Europe. I will repeat it. This is how the early sociologists and sociology as a discipline emerged to understand and respond to the changes that were happening because of modernity in Europe. Any questions, any doubts? Okay. I have shared the Google Drive. I put the, so because that Haralambo's book is too big for, it's 170 MB, and apparently more than 100 MB you can't share it on WhatsApp. I didn't know it. So Um, I shared it on my folder, and I shared a link to that on the WhatsApp. You can download Harlambo's book. I also put George Ritzer there again, so that at one place you have everything whenever you need it. I will keep the link alive for say a couple of weeks more until our sociology cohort, which is already decent. Once it is finalized, I will request you to download them. By then, I also put the first section of IGNO material, which is relevant for say about a month of classes from now on. I also put the NCRT, the first section of NCRT, the first NCRT textbook, 11th standard one, which is again relevant topics right now. Whatever is relevant, that is there. So I just put them. Every once in a while, I'll be sharing material on material like videos or simple play, like this entire French Revolution. I have one source in which it is very simply explained. So what my attempt will always be to make things simplified to you, because UPSC is not going to reward you just because you write something fancy and difficult and something that nobody has written. No, except in essay, you don't do that. You are not going to be rewarded for it. Write common model answer. Only thing, it has to be simple, but you have to have a lot of clarity on what you're writing. In your head, you can't be jumbled up. Whatever you're saying, you should know exactly the meaning of each word that you're saying, and that will come only when you think so clearly, which is why it is important that you speak. Anyway, so that is about the source material. I will keep adding on to the sources, and every time I add, mostly I'll be able to share it on the WhatsApp, but I'll also keep adding on to that folder so that you have access to it readily. The Haralambos book, there is nothing to read about this chapter. This chapter can be read on NCRT. NCRT is too little. IGNO is decent. Ritzer is all right. You can take Ritzer if you want to for the first chapter, the changes in modern Europe and emergence of sociology. Read your NCRT, frame, make an outline, only the outline from NCRT, like subheadings type. Then fill in the details from your IGNO and Ritzer. No? So commercial revolution, what does it mean? What is it? What is it? What is it? Industrial revolution, what is it? What is it? Intellectual changes, what is it? What is it? What is it? So that is how you make. Always NCRT is your first syllabus. From syllabus, so that's why in the folder that I shared, I also shared the notification, the UPSC notification, so that you have the syllabus ready with you. So your notes should be syllabus wise, topic and the subtopics in the syllabus, and for each subtopic from NCRT you create an outline, and into that outline you fill IGNO and Ritzer, or when it is Harlambos doesn't have this chapter at all. So right now it will only be so you have syllabus will say modern changes in modern Europe and emergence of sociology. For that, NCRT will give you outline, intellectual changes, material changes, something else, something else. Into that, you will fill your IGNO material. You'll be like, when it says intellectual changes, because NCRT will give very few intellectual changes, IGNO will give a lot more intellectual changes. Add to that my notes or my classes, which is I went into detail. I gave much more than what IGNO or Ritzer has. You can stick with IGNO or IGNO as Ritzer, but for you to fully understand IGNO and Ritzer, you need the kind of background that I'm giving you. So that is a format that you have to follow from now. If you have to change the format, I will tell you for that particular topic that for this topic, go directly to Harlambos, forget NCRT, or if it is not available NCRT, I will inform you that this is not available. Go to Ritzer or go directly to IGNO, make the outline from IGNO. So, but your notes has to be syllabus. Every topic in the syllabus, you should have notes. Sociology is one of the easiest optionals, believe me. Just stick to the syllabus, and that is what is expected of you. Nobody has raised a hand. I will presume that then nobody has a doubt.
Uh, I missed a thing about how to make the note making, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said that you take the syllabus. Uh, Syllabus has several units, right? Your paper one has about 10 units. So you're going to first, in your notes, you're going to write down the first unit, describe it as it is in the syllabus, each topic separately. Then from there, each of that is a heading for which you have to fill subheadings from NCRT. So emergence of sociology, changes in modern Europe and emergence of sociology is your topic. Now that topic will have some. That topic is there as it is in NCERT textbook. So in NCERT textbook, whatever are the headings for that chapter, emergence of sociology in modern Europe, you will make that as the subheadings. Now, and you will read the NCERT very slowly, very carefully, thinking through with NCERT. Once you have done that, you're going to study IGNO. Like for this topic, it is IGNO and Ritzer, not Harlem-Bose. You don't have to see Harlem-Bose for this topic at all. You're going to see IGNO and those subtopics, you're going to fill in more examples and details from IGNO and Ritzer. It will usually be that the case that there is syllabus ka whatever is mentioned, that unit name and those topics that are mentioned in the syllabus, you will fill it with NCERT headings. In NCERT, every point that is mentioned is a heading. In NCERT, it will be part of the text, but here it will become a heading for you because that text has to be further explained, which is explained in IGNO or it is explained in Ritzer, and that then becomes the content. So that is the progression that you need to follow to make your notes.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you. Sir.